Yeah, and I think when you have that microcosm of community, then you have, both of us are writing crime thrillers, so something bad happens, and how how the community responds to that.
I'm writing my new one too, and the way that I write, I don't know if you're the same, but I never know who the killer is till about 50,000 words, or till roughly about, so it creeps up on me. So I think those characters and that mix of community is so interesting to write about. Do you? Hi Petronella, it's so great to be here talking with you.
Hi Margaret, such fun to be at Better Reading.
It's sort of perfect, isn't it? Because it's the favourite thing, chatting about books and getting to know each other a bit more. So it's my favourite thing. I was really excited. I was paired with you too, actually.
Yes, and we've got lots of in common, which we will talk about. So that's really exciting.
We've both got our fourth. It's our fourth, isn't it, for you? For The Last Trace is your fourth. Yeah, and The Creeper is my fourth one too.
And The Last Trace came out this month, and The Creeper comes out tomorrow.
It does, I know. And I loved The Last Trace.
Oh, thank you.
I really thought it was great. And honestly, after your book, I went back and looked at my old doll collection with a whole new light. For those of you who haven't read it yet, Betty.
I didn't bring the doll. The doll was actually inspired by my mother's doll.
So it's a real doll.
It's a real doll, yes.
Yeah, wow.
And I have been taking it to book events and freaking people out, but I didn't bring it today. I thought it's too much to bring today.
Yeah, imagine you could scare people with it when they're in the middle of the night. You could reach the doll up from the side of the bed. It's so spooky.
Well, after my book launch, which was at a pub, we were parked in this scary car park, and the kids left early, took everything back to the car, and then they're like, "Hurry up, Mum, hurry up!" Texted me, "Get back to the car," and I got back to the car. And I went to open the driver's door, and they'd put the doll in the driver's seat, all done up.
Oh, that's so scary.
It was 10 o'clock.
That is the stuff of nightmares.
It was terrifying.
Seriously, it has nothing on Betty.
A scary doll. But I think that brings us to what inspires our novels, and we both grew up in regional Australia, and we both write about community.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bathurst, which is about 3.5 hours west of Sydney. It's kind of central west.
Now, all I know about Bathurst is the cars. Is that right?
There are cars there. There are other things there too.
But there is the big car race, isn't there?
Yes, Mount Panorama.
Yeah. I've never been to Bathurst. Is it a nice part of the country?
It's a lovely part of the country. Yeah. It's got lots of schools and universities.
Oh, so it's big.
Yeah.
How big is it?
Well, when I grew up, it was 30,000, but now
it's a city.
It's bigger.
You're serious? That's massive.
And where did you grow up?
Well, my dad was the teacher of little bush schools, the headmaster at usually one or two schools. So I moved around a lot in rural Victoria. So Deans Marsh, Walwa, Patchywallick in the Mallee. Where else? For a little bit Red Hill, and then more recently Bendigo, but now I'm in Beechworth, which is northeast Victoria.
And this would explain why we both write about community.
Yes.
Because my dad was the only obstetrician in town.
Was he?
So we'd walk down the street and every woman would say, "Hello, Dr. McGovern, Dr. McGovern, Dr. McGovern." My husband said it was like walking down the street with a rock star.
Oh, that's so...
And then my mum was a GP, so she'd walk past a coffee shop and all the elderly patients would say, "Oh, could we just have a quick consult as we..."
Oh, that's so wonderful.
But then, like your dad as a school teacher, everybody knew my mum and dad, so everybody knew me. And then I think that's crept into my books in the way that I write about community and how you're always looking at what a community does in a crisis, whether they do the best or the worst, and how they're all interconnected.
Yeah. Do
you think that with your dad?
And I'm always interested in how landscape mirrors community. Mirrors. So I would write a very different story, and I used to write short stories too, but a very different novel if it was set in the Mallee, in the town of Patchywallick, where I grew up there, than in Deans March, which is down the Otway Ranges. So I think it's interesting how where you live kind of shapes how you are too, and I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, and just and on that from setting, so here we are in the inner west in Sydney, and the characters you write for the inner west in Sydney are quite different from what you write for the Mallee as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that and even though, like as humans, we all have similar dreams and hopes and happiness, ideas about happiness, but the individual worries, like what you have in the middle of the city versus what's in the country. I think that's really interesting and makes
and I like writing about small towns too, and you obviously do too, and you obviously have a really great connection with small towns in Last Trace when you write about the high country as well, and the creepers set in the high country. But I really like it because it is a melting pot, isn't it? And sometimes country towns can be really maligned in literature, actually, and treated as kind of poor stereotypes. But they're not like that at all. They really are a microcosm of all of community, but in one little ball. You do have your doctors, your obstetricians, you have the headmaster, you have the mechanic, you have the butcher. If you're lucky, you have a library there. In the towns that I was growing up, we didn't have libraries, but we had the mobile van that would come around, the library van that would come around every 4 weeks or something. So, but we had that guy, we knew Mr. Sluggett would come around every 4 weeks. So I think those characters and that mix of community is so interesting to write about. Do you?
I think when you have that microcosm of community, then you have both of us are writing crime thrillers, so something bad happens, and how how the community responds to that. But you can have the good, the bad, and the people taking advantage of it. All of those tied in together. And that is that's a microcosm of Sydney or Australia or the world. Let's just say the world.
Well, you're right. But I think there's something really, well, for me anyway, because, and for you, I think, but because I live in a small town too, and I think, and every morning when I go for a walk, and I know you go for walks in bushland as well, every time I think there's so many places that I can hide a body here. So there's really practical things about riding in a rural place, because there's so many places that you can hide a body. Often there's places where there's black spots where there's no reception.
Black spots are important, very important.
Spots, and they're grey. And also you can put your characters under such environmental stress. So drought, floods, snowstorms, the freezing weather, that kind of thing. And that, putting your characters under such stress is a really great literary device.
And I think that also that aloneness, you can have a character who is truly alone in the bush, whereas in the city you can't quite. I mean, you can have someone hidden in a warehouse, I guess. Downstairs. I don't know. But,
I think, and you do it really well in The Last Trace. I loved it, and I particularly loved your depictions of up in the high country, up in the high place. It's obvious. Did you know that country well?
I used to live in Canberra, so we used to go up to the Snowy Mountains. And I kind of took some things from my own farm where I grew up and sort of brought it together. But I think that's what we do as authors, because I teach creative writing as well, and some people say, every story's been written. And that's kind of true, but every author also brings their own experiences. So you bring your own experience of your dad and the Mallee and the Otways, and you're a hiker, you go hiking, and these are hikers out in the bush.
They are hikers.
And I was thinking about The Last Trace, and I've got a character. They go to Kenya. They're in Pennsylvania. They're in the Snowy Mountains. And while none of that's autobiographical, I've been to Kenya. I worked on a summer camp in Pennsylvania.
I was going to ask that. Did you work on a summer camp? Hey, Roo. You know how they called my sister Roo. Hey, Roo. We used to
Which was funny.
What was your camp nickname?
I can't even remember now. Oh my gosh, how could I have forgotten?
It would have been something like that.
Something.
Something slightly lame.
But I think you bring all those things together, and often you don't realise. Often it's subconscious. But then that makes your book story different to any other story.
And what about, you think, your work background, Petronella? How has your job in communications, has that helped with creative writing, the creative process?
Yes, I think so. But I always wanted to be a writer. Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes. I wanted to make a raft and sail across to Peru for a really long time. Yeah, Peru was a long way from Patchywallick.
And you had raft making skills?
Did do that.
Did you get the raft making skills?
No, I didn't. I sort of learnt how to, or tried to, but I never sailed to Peru. No, but yes, writing was always there in the background.
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, but for some reason, and I always wrote when I was younger, but for some reason, I don't know who told me, but someone told me, you're not going to make money as a writer, so you have to get a real job first. So I did go off and get a real job in writing and marketing. I think when you're doing communications, you're writing to get a point across, but to get it in the most interesting way. And with the communications, I was working with international students and business companies, and I was always looking to tell a story. So you wanted to tell a personal story, and that's what connects with people. So I think that's the same with novels, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the same with novels. And I'm a teacher, so I'm an English teacher at a secondary school in just out of Wangaratta. And I reckon that teaching, and I teach senior students now, but how that's helped me is with dialogue. So I really love listening. The students that I teach are so fantastic. They're brilliant. But just how they speak, the vibe. I love the vibe. I love like, honestly. Like everything's honestly. Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Honest. I've got to be honest. I didn't like that orange. Why? But I love it. So yeah, with dialogue and also staff rooms are such wonderful places because I can go and say to someone, how do I make a CFA sponge? And I can go to the food technology teachers, or I can say, how do I mix up DNA and ask the scientists? It's just, or I can say, what gun do I use to shoot a deer? And I can go and talk to the people who work in, outdoor ed, that kind of stuff. So it's like a little office.
You've got a research community
I can just yell
in the staff room.
Oh my gosh. What happens? Yeah, it's great.
I'm doing so much online research. I'd much rather a staff room.
You do so much research. You must have.
Yeah, I do.
Did you ask your dad about the DNA stuff?
Well, my dad's not with us any longer, but I went to an online an online lecture with a forensics scientist and a federal police guy, and they were talking about it all.
Wow.
And that was really fascinating.
I was amazed at the level of research and I learned so much from The Last Trace when I was reading it. I loved it, Petronella.
Well, I can't wait to read The Creeper, but it's coming out next week, so I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it comes out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I know, I'm slightly nervous.
No, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's... Hopefully.
And this is another in the series with Margariti.
No, this is not.
This is a standalone.
So this is a standalone. So the three were Margariti. I thought I'd give Margariti a break for a short time, try and challenge myself. No, this is a new character, Sally White. She's young. She's a cop in a town. She's got a hot boyfriend. She likes dancing. She likes having drinks. Everything's great. She's got great friends. And then her family background and a past crime
come together.
Start bearing down. You know how it
sounds
works.
Familiar, yes. And how's it been different writing a standalone to a series?
It was hard.
It is hard. I keep thinking it's easier writing a series, but I didn't want to say that because...
So what do you think?
I think it's really hard writing standalone every time.
Credit to the standalones out there. Because I was so familiar with Margariti, I knew him so well. I could write 20 Margariti books. I've got Margariti's like a great friend that I'd have a cuppa with or a drink of wine with. But Sally was a new character for me, and it's been a long time since I was a 25-year-old girl going out to pubs. But I really
you can
liked
remember
her.
it. Yeah, you can remember it.
I remember it well. Yeah. So what's next for you, Petronella?
Well, I'm starting again a new book, standalone.
A new standalone?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I always, as you say, it's trickier coming up with new characters.
Yeah,
I've worked out the characters. I mean, I've written a bit, but I need to get into it, and I don't plan. So I need to just trust myself and throw myself in. Yeah.
I'm writing my new one too, and the way that I write, I don't know if you're the same, but I never know who the killer is till about 50,000 words, or till roughly about, so it creeps up on me. So I have a list of small suspects, so it's not a complete hot mess.
Yeah.
I kind of have a small cast of who it could be, but I'm in a new one writing too, and I'm enjoying working out where these characters are going to take me.
Well, I for the first couple of books I knew who'd done it.
Yeah.
But for The Last Trace I didn't know.
Oh, you didn't?
No. So then
Did you enjoy that?
I did, but I was very nervous. And I was very nervous.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to tie it all together? And and what?
Yeah, it's a bit panic-inducing that method, but there's something organic and joyful about it too.
Yeah, and then it makes it better for the reader, I think.
Yeah, does it? Do you think?
Yeah, because you don't know you don't know who it is, so how can they know who it is?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But obviously, there's a lot of editing done. I mean, after
so much editing.
After the fact.
Well, it's been so lovely to talk to you, Petronella.
Yes.
It's been a dream.
Oh, it's been wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
And good luck with the book.
Thank you so much, and yours too. Thank you.
All
Bye.
Right.